moved into a new apartment about 6 months ago, and there was a lady and her 3 young children next to my door. She befriended me, and I thought she was nice enough. We'd have a few drinks together like once a week, then I'd go home. We got along pretty well, and one night she asked me to watch her kids for a little bit and she'd pay me. She said an hour. She turned up 4 hours later, drunk, and didn't pay me. I figured I'd let it slide. I had her kids in bed, so I just left. She continually kept dropping her kids off on me. I got really sick of it and started not answering my door. A couple weeks later, she was having a party in hallway. I came back from class, she saw me, and invited me over for a couple drinks. I figured I may as well. After a couple hours, she started snorting pills, pounding back more shots while holding her infant. Everyone was passed out by this point or gone. She projectile vomited in the floor and almost dropped her baby, and then passed out. Me or her kids couldn't wake her. So I gave them something to eat, put them in bed, and went home. This happened several times over the following weeks, and then she started leaving her children alone. Mind you, they were 8, 5, and 2 years old. They would come knock on my door because they were hungry or scared. I'd always feed them and let them sit in my living room. After a couple times of this happening, I got completely fed up. I had CPS on dial. I gave her 15 minutes to come home. She showed up and took her kids home. While I was at school one evening, my roommate texted me to inform me that she had busted in our apartment while she thought no one was there. Well, he was. He made her leave. What do you know? $100 went missing from my house a few days before that. I guarantee it was her. That night when I came home, knock on the door. This time she had left her kids alone for hours on end. We were done with this shit. My roommate called CPS and the police. The police showed up instantly and were furious. She had left her children alone. They had tried to cook and there was broken glass all in the floor. The baby's diaper was on her so long it was stuck to her, and there was evidence that she would beat them. I told the police all that I'd seen over the past few months. They took our statements and waited for her to come home. She showed up miraculously after they got a hold of her baby daddy. Out the window, I saw her. She started getting violent with the police. They slammed her on the car and arrested her. One of the police came back upstairs and informed me that she stated that I was supposed to be watching her kids. She wanted me to lie for her. I said absolutely not. Turns out she was drunk on arrival and had previous child neglect charges and a theft charge. She's been in jail since December. Her children are with their grandparents and very well taken care of. She was a nightmare. I'm glad to be rid of her. When I was a teenager, my family and I moved to South Florida. After settling in, we met the head of the neighborhood association, a man named Jack. Initially, Jack seemed really friendly. Our house was right next to Jack's, and we often saw him outside, always smiling and waving at me and my younger brothers and sisters. For the first few months, everything was great. We got to know our neighbors and even went to a barbecue hosted by Jack. But then things started to get weird. We heard from some friends in the neighborhood that Jack was acting strange. They said he would turn on his sprinklers on purpose when they were outside taking care of their plants. They also noticed him following them when they walked their dogs, and it looked like he was trying to record them on his phone without them knowing. This really surprised us. After a while, Jack began to pay more attention to me and my siblings. He would come up to my younger brothers and sisters while they were playing and say how adorable they were. He even asked my youngest sibling if they wanted to go for a walk with him in the neighborhood. Jack's behavior got weirder and weirder, until one evening, just after it got dark, I was walking my dog. My parents had told us to stay away from Jack and his house, so we took a longer route to reach that place where my dog liked to play. As I walked, I kept hearing footsteps behind the building even though I was alone. Every time there was a space between buildings, I'd peek through, but I couldn't see anyone. Being a curious kid, I decided to check it out. As soon as I moved towards the other side, the footsteps stopped. When I reached the corner of the building, I looked towards the grassy area on the other side. There was Jack, standing by the edge of the building, his phone pointed right at me. He just stood there, laughing. It was clear he had been filming me with his phone. I got really scared and ran all the way back home. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The next day, I decided to bike to the grocery store. As I was biking through the neighborhood, I saw Jack's car driving in. But instead of going to his house, he started following me. I was biking away from his house and started pedaling faster, worried he might stop to talk to me. His car kept getting closer, and he even started driving on my side of the road. Our eyes met, and he was smiling in a really creepy way. I quickly biked onto the sidewalk just as his car came really close to my bike, about a foot away. Then he stuck his head out of the window and let out this really loud, scary laugh. After that incident, my family went to the courthouse and got a restraining order against him. He wasn't arrested, even though it turned out he was accused of following other kids in the neighborhood. It's a reminder to be careful when you move somewhere new. You can't always tell who your neighbors are. I was spending the night at my friend's house. Her name was Kate. Kate lived in a neighborhood that wasn't very safe. It was a short distance from our middle school. Kate's mom was raising her alone and worked late hours. That night, we had the house to ourselves. Kate's mom had left lots of snacks for us, and we could eat as much as we wanted. It was still early, so we decided to take a walk to the pond in the park area, not far from Kate's home. As we were walking back, a car came up behind us. I didn't know who it was, but Kate recognized him. She said it was Andy, her neighbor. Andy looked older, maybe in his 50s. He had a gray beard and wore a baseball cap. He slowed down his car and asked what we were doing that evening. Kate said we were having a sleepover and planned to prank some kids from our school and watch scary movies. Andy laughed and smiled at us. Even though I was young, I didn't feel comfortable with his smile. I was surprised. Kate shared so much with him. Maybe she knew him well. Andy spoke softly. "So, Kate, your mom's car isn't here. She's working late again, right?" Kate replied in her usual friendly way. "Yeah, she's on the late shift, so we have the house to ourselves tonight." Andy gave us that weird smile again and said, "Okay, have fun at your sleepover and don't get into trouble." He then drove off to his house. As we walked up to Kate's house, we saw Andy go into his home, still looking at us. When we got inside, I started asking Kate about her neighbor, Andy. I told Kate that Andy had made me feel uneasy. Kate admitted that Andy was a bit strange, but she didn't think he was dangerous. Kate was more trusting and relaxed, while I was always cautious and careful. We made pizza, grabbed snacks, and watched movies. We also chatted with friends on AIM. Later on, it was around midnight or 1 a.m., and Kate's mom hadn't come home yet. We were starting to doze off in our sleeping bags in the living room, with a scary movie playing on the TV. Suddenly, Kate muted the TV and whispered, "I think the motion sensor light in the backyard just went on and off." She quietly peeked out the window that looked over their backyard. I tiptoed over and asked if she saw anything. She didn't see anything at first, but then the light turned on again. We tried to see outside, but it was hard to make anything out. Kate thought she might see better from the basement window. We carefully walked down the basement stairs in the dark, not wanting to turn on the lights in case someone outside saw us. Kate was usually more relaxed, but we were both feeling paranoid, maybe because of the scary movies. There was a big window with a door next to it in the basement. The motion sensor light turned on again, letting us see a little inside the dark basement. Then we heard the door to the backyard start to rattle. We both screamed. The door had blinds, so we couldn't see who was outside, but someone was trying to open it. Luckily, the door was locked with a deadbolt, but we were still terrified. Kate picked up a baseball bat near a sofa and moved towards the door. I whispered to her that we should leave and maybe call her mom or the police. Kate, being braver, carefully lifted a corner of the blinds on the door window. The person outside kept trying to open the door. When Kate lifted the blinds, we saw it was Andy, her neighbor. We both screamed. Andy raised his hands and said, "It's okay, girls. I'm not going to hurt you. I just wanted to check on you. It's late. I thought I saw someone in your yard." We looked at each other, then at Andy. His eyes looked really wrong and scary, and we could tell he was lying about why he was there. Kate yelled at him to leave or she'd call the police. Andy just stared and said he was just checking on us because he knew we were alone. He tried to open the door again and asked us to unlock it. I grabbed Kate's arm and told her to call 911. I shouted that we were calling the police and he needed to leave. Andy glared at us, then backed away from the door. He looked around quickly, then ran off to his backyard. Kate and I ran upstairs, and her mom was just coming into the house. We tried to explain what happened with Andy. Her mom was shocked, but didn't want to call the police because he hadn't actually broken in or hurt us. Kate and I were scared and wanted her mom to report him, but she thought the police wouldn't do much. Luckily, I didn't see Andy again when I visited Kate's house. Not long after, Kate and her mom moved away. Still don't know what Andy wanted that night, but I'm very glad we never found out.